Hi there, good morning. Welcome to Sunnyside Journals. Welcome to 30 Minutes of My Day. I'm Catherine. Happy Wednesday. I'm slowly losing a little track of time. We've been digging out of snow here where I live. Oh my goodness. I mentioned on my Instagram and in a few videos, wouldn't it be nice to have a little snow? Well, the universe sent us snow and more snow and more snow. And apparently we're supposed to get a little bit more snow tonight. So hold on. Let me put my timer on. Although I can go over time now. Resume. There we go. I still like to know where I'm at because I know that I can be too long-winded given the opportunity and a microphone. So I'm still working on Tragedies of Shakespeare here. I think I've done as much as I want to do up to this point, and I do think it's time to prep these signatures to go into, to get sewn into the book text block. And of course now I can't find it. I'm going to pause and go look for it. Okay, I found it. So we're good to go. I have the little template already here. So you can see here 9 signatures. I've already poked the holes in. I always write top on this part. And I also write top on, this is what I use to poke the holes so they actually marry up. And I do that for myself on purpose because I have had times where, try as I may, the holes up here were not completely symmetrical with the holes down below. And if things got turned around, my signature block wasn't nice and even. Whereas if I'm always sure to have the top at the top in all cases, works out nicely. Which is another reason why for me, I find these little tabs so helpful for a multitude of reasons, but so that I always remember what's the top. Because yes, I have sewn signatures to the text block upside down by accident, especially with a naked book. It also helps me make sure that I get them sewn in order. And then afterwards, when it's all sewn together and I'm putting in some final details, for example, sometimes with a journal, I always want a pocket in, one pocket per signature that I put in. The new owner can put as many as they like in. I'm not sure I'm going to do that with this one, but I'm throwing out an example of why I would want to know at a quick grab where my signatures are. And by doing these little tabs, the arrow reminds me that's the top. And then I can find the tabs to look through it quickly at a glance, because I also do like to make sure they're balanced. So, for example, in each signature, whenever possible, I try to put in a folio from out of the original text block. And that way I can grab this grab signatures, check and make sure, is there a folio in each one? In this case, with each one, I had some of the paper I used was legal size, and because of that, there was an offcut. So I made sure that I put the offcut back in to the signature. So there's a piece of paper about this shape and size. I've tried to switch it up a little bit and make them look a little different, but that I've put back in. Isn't that cute? I'm happy with that. I made a front, sort of a plate, for the opening of this book with the original front page. And this is also actually, let me find a card. Where's the card? Well, let's see if this will work. This is actually also, yeah, there we go. It's also a pocket. So if someone chooses to put something in there. This is the date of publication. So I probably will be putting that back here, but I also thought that I might want to put it somewhere on one of the end papers. So I'm holding that back till I know for sure where I want to put that. So I have a few things I'm going to be doing today. And as ever, it's not really a tutorial. You know me by now, if you've been here a while. I turn on my camera and whatever I'm working on, that's what I keep working on for a little while. So I will be putting in ties so that this can be tied shut. And I also will be poking the holes through for this, and I think that's what I'm going to do right now. I pull out my trusty gardener's knee pad that I got at my dollar store. I love this thing, and I use it all the time for when I'm poking things. This is my tin that I keep everything in here that I need for sewing signatures. So, and it just barely fits. I'm either going to have to pare down the guts or find myself a bigger tin. But let's just get this out. Sometimes I like putting cheesecloth in behind. And these are various laces that I like putting at the head and foot of the text block. Hand sewing needles. Lately, this is my favorite thread that I like using when I sew signatures. So I'm going to put that there. Okay, these are my favorite paper clips. What else have I got here? I think these are more pins. Yes, they are. And then sometimes you'll see here I've got different colors of thread. Sometimes, for various reasons, I want a different color thread when I'm going to sew a text block. For example, I have had occasion where the opening, the center signature, the center folio in the signature, say this is it here, let me move those, is completely black, because sometimes I like to use an old vintage photo album page right in the center. It's a really nice thing to do. It's fun for collaging or for putting photos on. And if that's the case and this opening is completely black, I like to use black thread, because then you don't have the distraction of white or off-white thread down the center there. So in that case, I will use black thread to, even if it's just to sew one signature, perhaps it's the only signature in the book that has a center, an open folio, then I'll just use black thread for the one signature and go back to using a different color for the other signatures. And same is true if I have something in the center, and it's not the case here. For example, if this was a pure white sheet of paper, it's not very often, but it does happen. For that signature, I will use white thread. And I've got dark brown here. Obviously, I had to use dark brown one time, and I've got some gold thread there that I've used before. So that's why I have a few different colors of thread here. And they're a heavier duty thread, usually an upholstery thread. Everyone has their different preferences for what they prefer. Duh. To sew signatures with. Some people, only use linen. Some people only use cotton. Some people only use hemp. Some people will only use prepared signature thread. So this company has already waxed it. Some people like a really thick, almost like a cord, almost like a embroidery floss. Everyone has what they either enjoy working with or prefer the look of. And I find that I really enjoy a thicker quality upholstery weight of thread. And it just works for the signature I'm working with. I like working with great big flat paper clips. Some people enjoy a bulldog clip. Some only put one on one side. Some like both sides. Some want 4 on all 4 corners. I tend to use 2. What I will do is I look through and make sure that my smaller sheets are where I want them, like this one, because sometimes I want them down, sometimes I want them up, sometimes I want them centered. So I check and make sure that everyone is where I want it to be. And when I'm happy with that, I squeeze it together and make sure that it is flush, pushed as tight as it can be down into that fold. Sometimes if a center thing is smaller and the paper clips are not holding it as snugly in place as I would like, I will use some old previously used painter's tape. So the low tack masking tape, not contractor's masking tape. And I'm not going to do it in this case because this is fine, but I will just use it to gently hold it in place. And then once it's sewn together, I can peel it off. So I actually keep my pieces of torn up painter's tape off to the side here, stuck to the edge of my table, and I'll use it for as long as I can because I want it to just barely hold what I want in place. All right, so that one's ready. See how I've got these in that order. I've done that for a reason. For me, it's pleasing to my eye. And I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to leave it be. I like that little guy right there where he is. And there we go. So I'm going to pull them together, make sure that they're just flush down into that groove. They're grooving. And then I put one up there and one down there. Put it aside. Again, I've layered these like that because that's what I wanted. Lots of different papers in this one and lots of blank papers. Definitely a writing journal for sure. There we go. So we were digging out big time yesterday. My husband, for the first time, certainly since I've known him, had to shut down. And we've been together quite a while, and he's kept his business open through thick and thin. And yesterday was it. That was the day that brought everything to a standstill. But he was back in there bright and early this morning. Happy as a lark. He's much happier when he's in at work and keeping busy and doing what he loves. Alrighty. So I've got lots of... Oh, see, now I wanted to sew that before I put it in. It's glued in place right now, but it's not sewn. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to go sew. Okay. So I've sewn it in. Depending on my mood, will determine whether I leave threads and whether, if I'm going to leave it long, which side is going to get the threads. So in this case, this side of the page is white. And I just thought, well, maybe it wants to feel a little bit jazzier because the other side has some gold marbling on it. So I'm going to pull the threads through to this side and just tie them. I'm going to leave them long. The next owner can snip them off short if they don't enjoy them. I do a reef knot with one extra for good measure. So right over left and under, left over right and under, and then I do one more because it's just me being obsessive. Reminds me back to my days of when I was in a Kayla and you had to know your knots. So there we go. That looks nice. All right. So I made a cool thing here. Well, you know what? When I start decorating the inside, we'll get into that. So let's see if everything's where I want it. Yep. All right. Down a little bit further. There we go. This has just felt so nice to do an all sorts book. I had to remind myself many times, and I'm sure I still will need to, that it is an all sorts book because I kept getting tempted into making it either matchy-matchy or starting a theme. And I know some journal creators find it hard to do a theme. I actually find it hard to stop myself from doing a theme. My brain wants to start making everything match or have a reason for it to be there. And yeah, that looks nice. A little tag. This paper that I made this tag from was from an old 78 LP cover. An LP back in the day, I think nowadays people call them vinyls, but an LP was, I believe it stood for long playing. I could be wrong. I don't know. That just seems like a logical reason to call it an LP. We just always called them LPs, which is very different from a 33 or a 45. It was a 78. And they were thicker and heavier. And they kept them in big books, which is why they had really nice, sturdy covers. All right. Happy with that. See a whole bunch of mismatched things. Very happy. There's some more of that LP cover. Little pocket. Was I going to? No, I wasn't going to sew that. Lots of things from Happy Mail in this one. Thank you to the people who took time to send me Happy Mail. Very much appreciated. So nice to have something unusual. I do have good thrift stores near me, but boy, I don't have what some people are able to find some really cool things. And there are not a lot of estate sales where I live. All right, so the next thing I do is my awl. And then I like to use these, there's corsage pins in here. And then there's just some larger, I don't have enough corsage pins. The corsage pins are my favorite, but I do have larger pins. Let me make sure. Yes, I am in. So what I do now is I find I find the other part of my text block. There it is. Okay. So this has the lines on it where the holes go. I do mine differently. Some people will fold this and put it in. I just find I really don't need to. I'm going to make it a little bit darker so I can see it better. I hope I'm still in camera. I just make that tick, the pencil mark there, a little bit easier to see. Now I know that I will get people asking me, will you be showing me showing us how you sew? This is too long. I don't need it this wide. It's just going to get in my way. Will you be showing us how you sew the signatures? And no, I won't. It's one of the few things that I find takes all my concentration. I can get very flustered very easily sewing signatures. So here's what I do now. I get that flush into the fold. I always take the second one first, and I just push it down and poke it out the other side. And then, while I'm still holding it in place, I get one of my pins and I push it through the hole that I just created. Come on, you. And I push it right into the pokey material. That keeps it secure, because for me, in the past, I have had times where I poked the hole and then the papers, see how I lay my pin down on the line right up into that little crevice and push it through the other side. I have had occasions where the papers became loose, and boy, try to marry up your holes again. It's very frustrating. And then what I do is I just pull that out and I leave that pin in there until it's time for me to sew it into a text block. This just holds, and it ensures that all the rest of the holes will marry up when it comes time for me to sew. So back to that. No, I will not be sewing the text block on camera because I really don't enjoy doing it on camera. So I always check top. I know it's the top. I usually will pop the top part of my paper clip on top of there to hold that in place. I do the second hole first. And the reason I do the second hole first is sometimes I have shorter things, and usually the second hole will be enough to grab a shorter page. It's usually enough. And if it's not, I'll deal with that one. But this sure hasn't failed me in the past. Anyhow, so I would suggest, though, and I know I mention her a lot, I do have a crush on the woman. She's good at what she does. Go over to Nancy's channel, Wishes and Weeds, look through her videos, and find the one that says Sewing in Signatures. She's a good teacher. She's very, she explains things clearly. She goes through it methodically, and you can't go wrong. Oh, I left it inside. You can't go wrong watching Nancy's video on how to sew your text block together. So then I keep doing this. Bottom paper clip over to hold that in place. Poke the second hole first. Pinch it down with my finger and poke it out through that crack. Grab a corsage pin, put it through that hole, holds my papers all together. So in case I sneeze or something else like that, phone rings or I'm taken away from my desk, it all still holds in place. Pull that out, and there we go. I think I've still got more time. I think we can finish these together. Hold on, I'm going to give myself a few more minutes. There we go. Let's do this. Every once in a while, this gardener's knee pad goes missing. And I know where I'll find it. And I can't find too much fault because the man is working. My husband will steal it when he decides that it's the day to wash the kitchen floors by hand. And how can I find fault with that? He gets down on his knees and washes the kitchen floor by hand. So usually if it's not just to the side under my desk here, it's because it's down in the kitchen. And it usually means I've got a shiny clean floor, which warms my heart. So this will be, it is quite a bit of work to sew 9 signatures into a text block. Don't let that intimidate you. If you can sew 1 signature into a text block, you can sew 9. And your finished product will be beautiful and look really nice. It's always better to err on the side of more small signatures, I think, as far as it looking nice. Your finished book looking nice. Now, one thing I did find challenging was one time I did make a book that was longer. It was the book on Yorkshire. Now that's trickier, sewing a longer signature. That's hard. Or at least it was for me. But to sew a lot of signatures, no, just number your signatures, number your text block, and just go through it slow and steady, wins the race. You'll do fine. I always figure if I can do it, anyone can do it. So here, see what I mean? I'll leave this in. If I had done the first hole first, it would have missed this this folio that's in this signature, and this may have moved somewhere where I didn't want it to be. So by poking the second hole right off the bat, it holds it in place until I'm all done. I find that's also helpful if I'm putting in an open envelope. You know how sometimes you put in an unglued envelope into a center and then you glue it shut afterwards. And for me, poking the hole through closer in the center and then sticking a pin through it just keeps everything together until I start sewing my text block. Lots of different little things in this. in this journal. I'm really happy with the variety. Yes, that's a little piece from a little golden book. I figured it had gold on the cover, so I put a little bit of gold here and there in it. Let's put you over. I don't poke too far through with my awl. I really mostly just like just the littlest tiny tip, 1/16 of an inch through, just enough that I see it come through the other side. That's as far as it goes. Something in there. What's in there? Oh, usually I pull out loose things. Let's take that out. I put them back in after the book is completely together. I watched Barbara's video this morning, Barbara at 49 Dragonflies, and she had a very interesting topic that she talked about while she was working today on is it okay to use other people's ideas when you're creating junk journals? And I thought, I wonder what her idea is. I'm going to dismiss that. Obviously, I'm going to make full use of being able to go overtime today. And I thought, I wonder what her opinion on this is. I think I know what it is. I certainly know what mine is. And my opinion is that the whole reason we're sharing our work here on YouTube is for that we want to share and inspire and give ideas and hopefully have teaching moments so that other people can also enjoy making junk journals. And that's certainly what she said. And we also agreed. She also said that if you're doing something that you learned from someone else, do everything you possibly can to give credit to the person who you learned this idea or technique from. Give credit where credit is due. And certainly artists have done that all along. I mean, all you have to do is Google search Da Vinci's Last Supper and then Google search copies of Da Vinci's Last Supper, because many times that was how art students learned, was by actually trying to do their version of a masterpiece. I had to do that when I was taking a course down at the Art Gallery of Ontario. I went for 2 years to the Art Gallery of Ontario, and we had to choose an old master's painting and try our best to replicate it. I did Michelangelo's Doni Tondo, and you know what? I was really happy with how it turned out. Do you think I know where that painting ever ended up? And I was really, especially for a teenager, to be happy with how their artwork turned out. I loved how that turned out. And I don't know where it ever ended up. All right, so the holes are ready to go. These are all poked and ready to go. They seem bulky right now because they've got paper clips in place and they've got these corsage pins. But if there's anything I can tell you, even though I won't be sewing it, I always start sewing from the final signature. So in this case, the 9th signature, I will sew that in first. I go 9, 8, 7, and the last signature I sew in ends up being the very first signature. And that's just how I do it. It works for me. So back to Barbara and saying, because she made an accordion style little tag journal, very cute. And she was inspired by, now I can't remember. Anyhow, she inspired me because the artist that she was working from had used, I believe, glossy accents to make something shiny and give a bit of dimension. And I've seen Nick the Booksmith do that. That's where I learned it. For me, making something glossy and giving a bit of dimension, I learned from Nick the Booksmith, who shared it. But Barbara, I don't know whether she didn't have any glossy accents, but she wanted to make something stand out a bit more. And she used, and so I tried it on this because I want to put this into that book. It's a beautiful little tin. And she just used clear nail polish. And just it gives it a little bit of a glossy. And I thought, gee, that's smart, because I must admit I am kind of precious with my glossy accents. Up here where I live, it's not cheap. So, but for this cute little tin, I thought, I got clear nail polish. And so I painted it this morning with a bit of clear nail polish. I can still see a little bit of it over here. I just used it. I laid it on a piece of plastic, laid it down, painted it with clear nail polish, and I really like that. So that's an idea inspired by Barbara from 49 Dragonflies. So I'll put the link for Barbara's channel down below. She'll be able to tell you where she was inspired to make her little accordion tag journal that's very, very pretty and cute. I enjoyed what she had to say today. Anyhow, I'm going to get to work on these now and start sewing these. I'm also going to continue working on my naked journals. I've been working on them fast and furiously over there at my other table. So that's it for today. Probably next time you see me, this will be in. I think I'm going to use yellow sari silk as the ties, but I'm not sold yet on that. We'll see. I might use the antique ivory. Not sure yet. All right. Well, listen, take care. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And we'll talk soon. Bye.